royals turned out in full force as King Charles's nephew, Peter Phillips, married a nurse in a private ceremony in the UK.
Royal weddings are rarely short on surprises, but this unexpected guest list revelation has left even seasoned royal watchers stunned. Reports suggest that an unknown sister connected to Peter Phillips has received an invitation, triggering speculation, confusion, and a wave of questions about long-hidden family connections. As whispers of a dramatic reunion spread, many are wondering what this surprise appearance could mean for the royal family's carefully guarded history. So who is this mysterious figure? Why has she remained out of the spotlight? And what really happened behind the scenes? If you enjoy uncovering hidden stories, please subscribe. The unknown royal half-sister. Stephanie Phillips is the lesser-known half-sister of Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall. Born into the wider orbit of Britain's equestrian-linked royal family, her name carries quiet recognition rather than public attention. Her father, Captain Mark Phillips, once married to Princess Anne, later built a new life with a Hawaiian-born equestrian, Sandy Pfluger, bringing Stephanie into a blended household shaped by horses, competition, and shared resilience. Rather than a distant arrangement, the siblings grew into familiarity, despite age gaps stretching across nearly 2 decades. Much of her upbringing was quietly tied to Gatcombe Park in Gloucestershire, the estate closely associated with Princess Anne's family circle. Within those grounds and gatherings, she was included in private traditions that often remain unseen outside royal-adjacent life. A deep passion for horses became a defining thread, influenced by a family where Olympic medals and international competitions were part of everyday conversation. Her own journey in eventing and dressage eventually reached international levels, reflecting both talent and inherited influence. In the year 2016, she stepped into a different role, serving on the jury for Olympic equestrian events. Outside of arenas and competitions, she balanced an ordinary work life, once taking part-time shifts as a bartender during her university years. Across these contrasting experiences, she maintained a steady presence within a family network that often stays away from public view. What stands out most is how naturally she became part of that private world, despite holding no title or official royal role. Even as her life moved between Gloucestershire's countryside and international sporting circuits, she remained largely outside the glare that follows well-known family names. From eventing arenas across Europe to quieter moments connected to family gatherings at Gatcombe Park, her path reflects a balance of visibility and privacy. The influence of Mark Phillips, an Olympic gold medalist in eventing, and Sandy Pfluger, a competitive equestrian from Hawaii, shaped not only her sporting interests, but also her grounded approach to life beyond titles. In quieter reflections of family life, the story of Stephanie Phillips is less about status and more about continuity, connection, and the quiet shaping of identity within a complex yet familiar household. Her participation in the equestrian jury at the Olympic Games in the year 2016 further reinforced her place within the sport's respected international community. Even in moments away from competition, such as working part-time in hospitality during her university period, she demonstrated adaptability and independence that complemented her privileged background. Ultimately, her story remains quietly woven into a wider royal-adjacent tapestry, where family ties, sporting legacy, and personal choice intersect in ways that are often understated yet deeply significant in understanding the human side of a well-known lineage today. How did Stephanie Phillips, largely kept out of the public spotlight, quietly secure such meaningful roles at major royal weddings? What do these carefully chosen moments as a flower girl reveal about her true place within the family circle? And why has her presence remained so quietly significant over the years? Let's unravel the details. A hidden bond beyond titles. In the quiet spaces where family bonds are revealed most clearly, belonging is often shown through small but meaningful roles at celebrations, where presence matters more than titles. Stephanie Phillips appears within this family story not through public declarations, but through moments that carry personal weight at weddings and gatherings across the years. She was chosen as a flower girl at Zara Tindall's wedding in 2011, a role usually reserved for those held closest to the couple. Earlier still, she had also stood in a similar position at Peter Phillips's wedding in 2008, reinforcing her quiet place within the family circle. When she married William Hosier in 2022, the ceremony carried a sense of unity that drew attention beyond its private setting, especially as Princess Anne attended as a guest by choice rather than obligation. Her presence reflected quiet acceptance within the wider family narrative, suggesting bonds that extend beyond formal duty or public expectation. In more informal settings linked to equestrian events, Stephanie has been seen moving easily among relatives, sharing moments of relaxed familiarity with Zara Tindall's husband, Mike Tindall, and others in the family circle. On social media, she has occasionally referred to Peter Phillips as a steady, older brother figure, reflecting a relationship grounded in warmth rather than ceremony. Across these moments, a consistent pattern emerges. Belonging is not defined strictly by titles, hierarchy, or public recognition alone, but by shared experiences and long-standing trust built over time. This quieter branch of the family reveals how inclusion is often expressed without announcement, carried through roles at weddings, personal choices, and enduring connections that continue to shape its story. Far from the spotlight of formal royal duties, these small gestures form a clearer picture of how relationships are maintained across generations, especially within events that bring the extended family together in moments of celebration and shared memory. Even when such connections are not publicly highlighted, they remain visible in the steady rhythm of attendance, participation, and mutual respect that shapes these gatherings over many years. In Stephanie Phillips's experience, these patterns of inclusion highlight a reality that is often missed in public discussion. That family identity is not only written in official records or public appearances, but also in the quieter continuity of shared life events and personal trust that endure beyond ceremony. It is within these moments that her story finds its place among a wider network of relationships that continue to evolve with time while remaining rooted in familiarity and shared history across generations. Each gathering quietly reinforces that sense of belonging that words alone cannot fully capture, but is felt in presence across time and family life. A quiet Cotswolds celebration seemed simple on the surface, yet every detail hinted at something deeper unfolding within royal family ties. What truly made this wedding so significant? And how did the presence of Peter Phillips, Harriet Sperling, and their children quietly signal a new chapter of unity and change? Let's find out. Love blossoms in the Cotswolds. On a calm countryside weekend in the Cotswolds, Peter Phillips and Harriet Sperling stepped into a new phase of life through a wedding that blended quiet royal tradition with deep personal meaning. At Gatcombe Estate, where the reception later unfolded on Princess Anne's grounds in Gloucestershire, the atmosphere leaned toward intimacy rather than spectacle, carrying the feel of a family gathering rooted in memory and continuity. The most striking image came not from grandeur, but from the quiet sight of Harriet's daughter Georgina, walking alongside Peter's daughters Savannah and Isla, a small moment that subtly reflected how two families were being gently woven together. The ceremony itself took place earlier that day at All Saints' Church in Keble near Cirencester, a peaceful stone church about 2 hours from London, where tradition met privacy away from the capital's glare. Rather than overwhelming crowds, the guest list remained carefully controlled. Yet it still carried weight through the presence of King Charles III, Queen Camilla, the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, Princess Anne, and close family members, including Zara and Mike Tindall, as well as Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Harriet's personal moment of arrival was marked by her brother escorting her down the aisle, a gesture shaped by the loss of their father, while her mother and siblings watched with quiet emotion. The celebration, held on June 6, 2026, carried a calm rhythm that contrasted with public curiosity in London. as Peter Phillips maintained his long-standing preference for privacy despite his position as the eldest grandchild of the late Queen Elizabeth II. From quiet countryside paths to symbolic family unity, the day reflected a careful balance of heritage and modern family life, unfolding away from royal pressure, yet still tied to its history. Inside the stone walls of All Saints' Church, soft light filtered through stained glass as close family members gathered in respectful silence, creating a moment that felt both grounded and deeply reflective. While outside, the Cotswolds landscape offered a gentle backdrop that contrasted with the usual intensity associated with royal ceremonies in central London. At Gatcombe Estate later, conversations among relatives and friends flowed in a relaxed rhythm, reinforcing a sense of continuity across generations of the wider family, even as attention subtly returned to the image of the three children walking together and the quiet approval felt across the gathering. Ultimately, the day stood as a reminder that even within royal-adjacent life, private happiness can quietly reshape tradition without breaking it. Each detail, from gestures to setting, reflected careful harmony between public expectation and personal choice, leaving a lasting impression of unity and quiet evolution within the modern royal family. Beyond Peter Phillips and Harriet Spurling's wedding, something deeper quietly unfolded within the royal gathering. How did Harriet's daughter Georgina so naturally blend with Savannah and Isla? And what unseen dynamics are shaping this emerging family bond in ways few expected to witness? Let's uncover the intriguing details. A new royal family dynamic. Beyond the ceremony itself, what stands out most is not merely the wedding of Peter Phillips and Harriet Spurling, but the quieter shaping of a blended family identity unfolding around them. Harriet steps into this shared world, accompanied by her 13-year-old daughter Georgina from a previous relationship, and early glimpses of their adjustment suggest an unexpectedly natural ease rather than friction. At Easter Sunday service held at St. George's Chapel in Windsor, Georgina was seen alongside Peter's daughters, Savannah and Isla, and the interaction among the three girls appeared relaxed, almost instinctive, as though their different maternal backgrounds had already begun to dissolve into a single, everyday rhythm. Far from being defined by formal introductions or rigid expectations, their connection reflects something more organic, built in shared spaces and repeated encounters, rather than official statements. Within the wider family memory, figures such as Zara Tindall and Peter Phillips themselves were raised in environments already familiar with blended structures, where relationships extended beyond simple nuclear definitions. The presence of Stephanie Phillips, often seen at Gatwick Park and at various equestrian gatherings, adds another layer to this quiet history. Though closely tied to the family, she has largely remained outside public explanation, embodying the private complexity that often contrasts with public simplicity. This contrast has long been part of royal-adjacent life, where carefully curated narratives present polished continuity, while the lived reality contains far more nuanced arrangements of step relations, remarriages, and evolving household bonds. Against that backdrop, Georgina's ease within the group of children becomes more than a casual observation. It signals a generational shift in how family boundaries are understood and lived. Younger members of royal-linked circles appear less constrained by inherited definitions and more open to fluid belonging, where connection is measured by presence and shared experience rather than lineage alone. Even the wedding held on June 6, 2026, becomes less a single ceremonial moment and more a backdrop to these subtle transformations already in motion. Between public appearances, private gatherings, and the familiar grounds of Windsor and Gatwick Park, a new rhythm of family life quietly takes shape. It is a rhythm that resists official framing, instead revealing itself in small gestures, shared walks, and the unspoken acceptance of new roles. What emerges is not a disruption of tradition, but an adjustment within it, where continuity is maintained not by exclusion, but by gradual inclusion. And in that evolving space, the family reflects a broader truth about modern relationships. They are no longer fixed structures, but living arrangements constantly reshaped by time, trust, and everyday coexistence that quietly redefine what family can mean today, shaped by empathy, acceptance, and everyday shared understanding beyond formal labels in modern life itself. What really determines which royal connections are remembered and which are quietly overlooked, even when they exist at the very heart of family life? How did Stephanie Phillips, growing up within Gatcombe and closely linked to Princess Anne's household, become part of a circle whose everyday bonds with Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall were so often left in the shadows? Let's find out. Stephanie Phillips' family ties revealed. The way certain family connections are seen and others are overlooked reveals more about perception than reality itself. Some moments are highlighted in public conversation, while quieter bonds remain almost invisible, even when they sit at the very center of shared family life. A clear example can be found in Stephanie Phillips, daughter of Captain Mark Phillips, whose life has long been closely linked with the Gatcombe estate and the everyday world surrounding Princess Anne's household. Growing up within this environment, she was not separated from the family circle but naturally moved within it, sharing space, memories, and everyday routines with Peter Phillips and Zara Tindall. This closeness, often treated as simple background detail, actually reflects a more flexible understanding of family boundaries, where emotional ties matter more than formal definitions. Even major milestones, such as the wedding of Peter Phillips on the 6th of June 2026, become gathering points where blended relationships appear naturally without needing explanation. There is also a wider picture, where family networks extend beyond formal recognition, connecting individuals through remarriage, shared upbringing, and long-standing personal loyalty. Yet this complexity is not evenly acknowledged, as public narratives often focus only on select figures while others remain quietly in the background. The result is a shaped image of royal life that does not always match lived experience, where inclusion is often informal and quietly understood rather than officially stated. Within this space, Stephanie Phillips stands as an example of how proximity and shared history can matter more than official titles or strict labels. Her presence within family events is often treated as ordinary, yet it quietly reinforces the idea that belonging can be defined through consistent presence rather than formal recognition. Family gatherings, especially those connected to major occasions, bring together individuals whose relationships have evolved through time, marriage, and shared upbringing across estates like Gatcombe. This creates a living network where formal structure and personal connection exist side by side, sometimes overlapping and sometimes diverging in subtle ways. At the same time, public attention tends to simplify this complexity, selecting only certain relationships to highlight while leaving others in silence. What emerges is a subtle contrast between lived family reality and the more limited story presented to the outside world. Stephanie Phillips' place within this wider circle continues to illustrate how family identity is shaped through experience rather than strict definition, especially within environments connected to Princess Anne's household and the Gatcombe estate, where familiarity builds over years. In moments such as Peter Phillips's wedding on the 6th of June 2026, these quiet connections become visible, reminding observers that belonging often exists beyond formal acknowledgement or public explanation, often in subtle ways. If Felicity Tonkin shares the same father as Peter and Zara Phillips, why did her life take such a different path, one marked by distance and silence? What really happened after her existence was revealed in the early 1990s, and how did it reshape the already fragile marriage of Captain Mark Phillips and Princess Anne? Let's uncover the astonishing details. Blood Without Bond: The Untold Story of Felicity Tonkin. If Stephanie Phillips stands for inclusion inside a blended family system, the story of Felicity Tonkin reflects the opposite experience: distance, silence, and lives moving apart. She is also the daughter of Captain Mark Phillips, sharing the same father as Peter and Zara, yet her path unfolded far from theirs. Her existence became publicly known in the early 1990s, when confirmation emerged that Mark Phillips had fathered a child during his marriage to Princess Anne, a revelation that unsettled the final years leading to the divorce. Unlike Stephanie, Felicity did not grow up within royal circles and instead spent her childhood in New Zealand, far removed from the daily rhythm of her half-siblings. Over time, distance hardened into absence, with little evidence of shared milestones such as weddings of Peter Phillips or Zara Tindall being part of her life experience. Those close to the situation suggest the separation was never repaired, leaving Felicity to build a private life focused on veterinary science away from public attention. In contrast to Stephanie's integrated presence within the wider family network, Felicity's connection remained largely biological rather than lived or emotional. What becomes clear is a deeply uneven family structure shaped by proximity, choice, and silence, rather than just shared blood. One sister is present through shared upbringing, while the other remains absent, known more through record than relationship, yet both carry the same paternal link. Behind public appearances and formal titles lies a quieter truth. Family bonds are often defined not only by birth, but by who is allowed to stay close when public attention fades. This difference did not appear suddenly but settled quietly over years marked by separation, distance, and the absence of shared experiences that usually bind siblings together. While one side of the family circle continued to grow through events, gatherings, and shared memory, the other remained distant, shaping a life built outside that circle entirely. Yet the contrast between Felicity and Stephanie is not simply about inclusion or exclusion, but about how time, geography, and silence can shape entirely different realities for people who share the same father and the same origin story, even when the world assumes such connections naturally lead to closeness. Even within a well-known royal family, where public appearances suggest unity and a shared identity, the private reality can be far more uneven. Some relationships are carefully maintained through daily contact, while others are left to fade into the distance, remembered only through history and formal acknowledgement. This shows that blood ties alone do not guarantee emotional closeness or a lasting connection across lives shaped by different upbringings and choices made long ago, leaving behind a story that is less about titles and more about distance, identity, and belonging. The June 6, 2026 wedding in the Cotswolds seemed like a celebration, yet it quietly exposed who still stands close within the royal circle and who has drifted away. What truly caused these once unbreakable cousin bonds to weaken, and why did absence speak louder than presence at such a defining family moment? Let's reveal the remarkable details behind it. Royal wedding exposes family rift. The 6th of June, 2026 wedding was never just a private celebration. Instead, it quietly exposed shifting ties within the wider royal circle surrounding Peter Phillips. What made the gathering stand out was not only who attended in the countryside setting of the Cotswolds, but also who was missing, leaving silence to speak loudly. Among those notably absent were Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Sarah Ferguson, and Prince Harry, a detail that reflected how certain long-standing family links have loosened over time. A quiet observation from a close friend suggested that the cousins had gradually drifted apart, turning private distance into a visible reality at major gatherings. Yet within this separation, Peter Phillips continued to shape his events around familiarity, valuing stability and loyalty over ceremonial expectation. His decision to limit the guest list to around 150 people and choose a modest church in the Cotswolds rather than grand venues such as Westminster Abbey reinforced that approach. That mindset traces back to upbringing alongside Zara Tindall and a life shaped by the deliberate decision of parents to raise them outside formal royal titles, even as grandchildren of the late Queen Elizabeth II, whose passing in the period of shared grief deepened old bonds. In this light, the wedding becomes more than a single event, symbolizing how closeness is measured less by rank and more by presence, consistency, and emotional loyalty. Even the absence of figures once closely tied to Prince Harry, who had previously shared moments of grief after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, added emotional weight to the gathering without needing any public explanation. Such selective intimacy revealed carefully drawn boundaries that distinguished obligation from genuine connection among relatives spread across different paths of royal life. It also highlighted a long-standing pattern in which Peter Phillips has navigated public expectations by choosing personal loyalty over formal ceremony, shaping gatherings that feel intentionally small yet deeply meaningful. Across the quiet landscapes of the Cotswolds, far removed from the grandeur often associated with Westminster Abbey, the gathering reflected a deliberate choice to prioritize trust and familiarity, leaving behind ceremony in favor of closer human bonds that have endured distance, change, and time within the extended family circle. Ultimately, it showed that what binds the family is no longer position or title, but shared memory, presence, and the quiet strength of continued connection over time itself. Against this backdrop, Stephanie's quiet appearance at William Hosier's 2022 wedding, attended by Princess Anne, hints at deeper layers within the royal circle. But what does her presence truly reveal about hidden bonds beneath public separation? And how does it contrast with the reported distancing of figures like Prince Harry, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and others from key royal gatherings? Let's find out. Stephanie's quiet royal family presence. Against this backdrop, Stephanie's quiet appearance at William Hosier's wedding in 2022, attended by Princess Anne in the United Kingdom, has come to symbolize something far more layered than a simple family occasion. Her presence reflects an older pattern of belonging that operates beneath public attention, where inclusion is not defined by titles, but by private acceptance within the wider royal circle. While public narratives often focus on separation among members of the royal family, such as Prince Harry, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and the reported distancing of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie from certain gatherings, Stephanie Phillips is seen differently, long regarded as quietly included within Peter Phillips's personal world, rather than newly introduced into it. Her connection to Peter Phillips is described less as a recent development and more as a steady presence that has always existed within the family's private perimeter, even when rarely acknowledged in public discussion. A particularly notable moment in this pattern was Princess Anne's attendance at the same 2022 ceremony, which was interpreted as a personal gesture rooted in loyalty rather than formal obligation. Known for maintaining strong ties across her extended family network, Anne has often been associated with a consistent sense of duty that extends beyond official boundaries, shaping how certain relationships are quietly preserved. Reports of her concern for Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie further reinforce this impression of a figure who values continuity over division within the family structure. In this light, Stephanie's place within these gatherings appears less like an exception and more like part of a subtle framework that defines who is quietly accepted and who remains at the edges. This framework operates beneath official statements and public attention, guided by personal bonds that continue to influence the structure of relationships within the royal household today. It suggests that alongside visible roles and formal recognition, there exists another quieter system of connection that has endured across time and circumstance, shaping interactions in ways not always captured in public accounts. Within this quieter system, relationships are maintained through familiarity and long-standing trust rather than visibility or ceremonial importance, allowing certain individuals to remain part of the family's inner rhythm even when they are not widely discussed. As such, the presence of Stephanie alongside figures like Princess Anne quietly reinforces the idea that belonging within the royal environment is often shaped as much by private acceptance as by public recognition across shifting generations and evolving roles within the wider family network itself. A reality that remains largely unseen, yet deeply influential in shaping enduring family bonds over time itself. So, what do you really think happened when Peter Phillips's unknown sister was invited to the wedding? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.